Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Passive Investing Show. I'm your host, 𝗖𝗽𝗶 𝗖𝗽, and I'm joined by my co-host, 𝗖𝗍 Biniaz. We, of course, have another great show for you guys today. Please like and subscribe as it helps us build our channel and allows us to keep bringing you great content and expert guest speakers. Our mission is to empower investors to earn passive income through real estate investing. So guys, today we are joined by Dr. Jeff Anzalone. A little bit about Dr. Jeff Anzalone. He is a full-time practicing
Periodontist.
Yes. In the great state of Louisiana. He's an author and founder of debtfreedoctor.com. His focus is on helping doctors and other high-income professionals to create passive income from real estate so they can stop trading their time for money, which is really exciting. We're going to dive into that. Now, we believe that this interview with Jeff will be helpful to high-income earners looking to have alternative sources of income. We also believe the show will be extremely helpful to physicians across Canada and the US to hear about an alternative investment in real estate from one of their peers. So thank you so much for being here today and welcome, Dr. Anzalone.
Welcome.
Yep. Thank you. My pleasure.
Wonderful. So why don't we just dive right into things? If you could please tell us about your background, why did you start in medicine? And please tell us about your start in real estate investing.
Yeah, I think it all started when I was about 2 weeks away from getting out of my residency, and I was supposed to join a group practice. Well, unfortunately, that deal fell through, and I went from an abundance type mindset because, you know, when you're in training, you think, well, yeah, I have student loans, but when I get out, I'm going to, make decent money to be able to pay them off. I had about $300,000 in student loans, a 2-month-old, and my wife and I had already bought a home interest only loan. So we went from a very quickly an abundance to a scarcity mindset because this fear of things being taken away from me now at any point in time took over. And, it took a long time to get over that. But after that happened, luckily I connected with some peers in the area that helped me to start my own practice, showed me the ropes, which, we don't get any of that in our training. And even though it's probably a pretty important part, we don't get any of that. But so I was more focused on getting out of debt, just focused on having all that debt, getting rid of it, and walk through the Dave Ramsey 7 baby steps that he talked about. But once I accomplished that, I realized that I was still, trading time for money, still had to go to work, was only relying on one income stream. And it really came to light when I injured my wrist during a snow skiing accident. And that really highlighted, hey, if I can't work for extended periods of time, what are we going to do? But at that point, I knew something had to be done, but I didn't know where to start. And I started studying about what successful people do and millionaires. And 2 facts that I found was, number one, 90% of millionaires had real estate in their portfolio. At that time, I had none. And fact number 2 was millionaires averaged around 7 streams of income. At that time, I had 1. And this helped me to guide me that I needed to start focusing on replacing my active income with passive income from real estate. But again, I didn't know where to start. So as I started learning about the different ways to invest, whether you want to be active, be a landlord, or I started learning about passive, like in syndications, it helped us guide us to that because, we didn't have a whole lot of time being busy, raising kids, having a practice. And that eventually led me to syndications. But I realized there wasn't a lot of information about it at that time, especially geared towards us, the doctor community. And I started a blog to just start writing down what I was learning, which is actually snowballed, has really picked up pace, started a YouTube channel, and then here we are today.
Amazing, amazing. And there's a lot of times that people, don't realize that, as certain doctors, they're craftsmen. They use their
Yes,
hands
they use their
for
hands.
their craft. And if they, say an injury happens or there's a problem, they literally can't perform
Yeah,
their duties. So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And Jeff, I wanted to, our show seems to have evolved to highlight the transition many busy professionals we interview have taken from either leaving their profession completely and have focused on real estate investing, or they still have their careers but are spending significant amounts of time on real estate investing and learning about it. So we always enjoy discussing this topic, particularly with physicians. So obviously doctors, they need a tremendous amount of focus on their career as they're dealing with patients and of course their health concerns. So it's very interesting to see how someone like yourself is able to have enough time to spend in real estate. So maybe you could please tell us about this dynamic and any tips you have for other busy professionals that are looking to have kind of this side hustle, per se.
I think it goes back to you have to have something, a quote, a why that's driving you. And if, I'll have conversations with people that want to get into real estate investing and I'll ask them, why do you want to do that? And they very vaguely, well, this passive income thing, it sounded like a pretty good idea, or my brother-in-law does it. And I'll speak with them months or even years later, and they haven't done anything because they don't have a strong enough why to get them to that point. So it's kind of like, you probably know somebody that's overweight and they've been told for years, and you may have been telling them for years, could be a family member, hey, look, you want to think about losing some weight, getting healthy, getting healthier. And they never do anything until one day you look up and they've lost 100 pounds. And finally, they're the ones that said to themselves, well, I'm tired of eating like this or living like this. So it starts with the person. They have to, either they have to come across something like I did, like an injury to really wake them up, or maybe they see something happen to somebody else, or they're, I think the latest study that I saw that 50% or more physicians are going through burnout now, higher suicide rate. I think since August, just a few months ago, more than 500,000 healthcare professionals in the US had lost their jobs. Some of it, just from the pandemic, some of it to just are fed up with how the system's going. So there's, that person right there certainly would have a why, looking to do something else. So I would say figure out what your why is and really focus on that, and that'll keep you going. And you'll, what I do with my time and how I do it is going to be different than you or somebody else. But I have ways in between patients or the days off I'm not seeing patients, I'm focused. That's my why that gets me to focus on that and provide for my family and have extra time to do things for my family.
And I do recall seeing I do follow your YouTube channel, and I did see your video with Dan Sullivan's Who Not How. So I bet you've taken some golden nuggets from that book and utilize it as well.
Yeah, that for sure. That book, Who Not How, and the book that I read last year, right before that, Die with Zero. Those two books really got me focused on kind of a different way of how to live the lifestyle that I'm living, and what's really shows you what's important and what's not. I wish I'd have read those books earlier in my career, but I didn't. But that's why I wanted to share those with other people, so hopefully they'll get something out of it too.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
that's great. Now, Jeff, your injury was kind of the impetus to start looking for other sources of income. But I was just curious, prior to your injury, were you kind of like, did you ever think about alternative investments?
I never heard of them. The only thing that I'd known was what the financial advisors pretty much shoved down our throat is, 401k, invest with us, invest with me for 30 years. And then when you're 70, you'll be able to retire. And that's really the only thing that I knew.
Right.
And it was just index funds, stock market, that sort of thing.
And a follow-up question for that too. Are there any educational platforms that assist physicians in making smart investments, especially in the real estate world?
Most of them are geared towards the market. There are a few out there that a little bit of real estate, but I think most of the ones that I've seen are for people that want to be active investors. Some doctors that are active investors and teaching you how to go flip homes, or if you wanted to get a group and syndicate an apartment or something like that on your own, which, as you know, that takes a special kind of person that's really dedicated, that really can spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And you have your blog, so you're kind of educating other physicians, which is really great to hear. And we have many physicians that are part of our investor community, and some who have invested with us. But there seems to be a certain psychology that about doctors and the need to be speaking on their wavelength so they can understand you. Because I've spoken to many doctors. So how do you find this when communicating with doctors yourself?
You mean as far as talking to them about deals,
Or
or
maybe
finding them?
yeah, or maybe talking to them on an emotional level, because you can kind of understand them emotionally, right? It's kind of guiding them on an emotional level too, and kind of speaking their language,
And understanding their pain
and
points and their
understanding their pain
concerns, and
points.
yeah.
I think that's why I've had the blog and now the YouTube channel is really picking up, because I basically talk on the blog and the YouTube channel of what I'm experiencing. And I think people connect with that, especially now when I'm in front of the camera on YouTube. I've actually gotten more comments on the short amount of time I've had the YouTube channel than the 3.5 years with the blog, because, as you know, with video like this, you can see somebody and connect with them versus just reading an article. And they know just from what I'm talking about, I'm going through the same problems, issues, and have the same pain points as they do. And I think once you read about that, and I think that's how, you've probably heard the phrase, there's riches and niches. Well, I mean, I can certainly see that's true, because you just connect with somebody better whenever, hey, that person does the same thing as I do, and he's doing something that I want to do. I'm going to learn from him versus a salesman that's trying to sell me a piece of property or something like that.
100%.
Got it. Got it. And what is your current investment strategy in real estate? Are you buying and holding single family? Are you involved in passive investing through syndications? Talk to us about your strategies currently.
Right now, it's 100% syndications, and those are majority of them multifamily. This year, I did get into 2 hotel deals, and looking into some self-storage as well, but I would say 90% is multifamily syndications.
Yes.
Okay, and maybe you can talk to us about the regions you invest in, and how do you go about choosing what regions that you want to invest in?
I go to the southeast, which tend to be more of the states that are more friendly to people that own apartments. That they don't have a lot of the restrictions, a lot of the laws. I've lucked up with people, the syndicators, that's the main area that they like to invest into. Plus, I live down here, and I know how it is. I travel to Texas or Florida, or, Alabama, so which is where the properties that I'm invested in. So I know this type of people, this type of climate, so I'm familiar with it, and it makes more sense to me with that.
Okay, right on, right on. Now, my next question is, tell us how you vet a sponsor. Like, we're hoping to partner with doctors in our investments. So
More and more doctors,
more
for
and more
sure.
doctors as we're kind of reaching out. But it would be great to get your perspective, and if you have a checklist you go through when deciding what sponsor to invest with.
Yeah, I'm actually I have on my blog, which I'm gonna pull it up so I don't leave anything off. But I have an article that I wrote about how to vet a sponsor. See if I can find it. Okay, 9 ways. Let's see. I think, for me, it all starts with being able to find somebody that you can trust. And well, people immediately, they go, well, how you do that? And I said, well, it took me 4 or 5 years of it's just like if you moved into an area that you don't know about, and your son breaks an arm. Well, how do you find out if there's hundreds of orthopedic doctors? How would you find out where to take your son? I mean, you would ask people that either took their kids there, or they go there, or they know people. So you start doing that, and after a long enough time, you start to hear about who to go to and who to avoid. And the more times that you start investing with sponsors, you can tell the difference instead of just having one. I think being able to get to know that person, I like to know who their new investors are, get to talk to them. I like to talk with the investors that they've had for several years and see what they say, about that. I always like to ask the sponsor this question, which sometimes throws them off guard, but I'll say, well, if you were going to invest in a deal on your own, but you couldn't invest in your own deal, who would you invest with?
Oh, nice.
And I think that's another good way. If you ask enough sponsors and they're all saying, this other group over here, well, then to me, that tells me that they're pretty good as well,
Nice one. Yeah, that's a good one to ask a
Yes.
sponsor. Hey, see what they say. But no, that's really, really great. Usually, people are investing with the person, even though there's a great investment. So it's good to kind of get a vibe of who's the best person,
Especially,
who has the best communication.
Yes.
And it's all about, this is kind of a relationship game. I know with my investors, I really try to get to know them and kind
Yes.
of what their pain points are, what they're looking for.
Of course,
and then
of course.
you build the relationship over years.
And also with these syndicated investments, this real estate private equity, all the numbers and returns are forecasted. So obviously the GP is, this performance-based compensation to the GP in most cases. But again, it's, it just, you can't just look at numbers, because those are forecasted numbers, and it's important to feel comfortable with the GP you're with, and it's like it's somewhat of a marriage, right? It's like
Yeah, definitely.
for 5 years you want to be in business with the people, and Ava does an excellent job as far as constant communication and the friendship she's created.
But I'm going to actually check out his blog, because he's literally a physician.
Yes.
And he put in his blog like 9 things to look for when vetting a
definitely.
sponsor. So I'm going to check that out, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that. Another question for you. How important is cash flow to you?
Well, I think it depends on what you're looking for, because if you're still practicing and you don't need the cash flow now, well, to me, I still work, so it doesn't really matter to me. But you do have some people that their goal is, hey, I want to retire in 2 years or 3 years, and they're really trying to replace as much of their active income or replace their personal expenses with cash flow. So I think that's, again, depending on what your goals are. I'm in the process now, I have goals like I want to be out of the practice if I can in 5 years or less. So my goal is to replace my personal monthly expenses, with that passive income, and then do real estate full time. But again, it just depends on what you're looking for.
Got it. And on your plans, not to give out any kind of secrets or anything, but is the plan to be the GP or start a private equity firm?
Not at this time. I like educating. And I want to, I envision seeing myself having a big platform. So when people come to it, let's say that they need maybe a real estate accountant, or maybe somebody that can help them with if they're having legal issues, or if they need a real estate attorney or something like that. Or maybe some people that can help them invest in notes or apartments or whatever, people that I've sort of gone through and I've vetted and they can trust. And, I kind of look at maybe like the Dave Ramsey model, how he has his in ELP, endorsed local providers, to where he vets these people. And then, depending on where you are in the country, if you need help with certain things. And that way we can continue to educate and grow instead of staying small.
Great.
I like that. That's awesome. That's awesome, Jeff. Now, maybe you could talk to us about mentors. Do you recommend mentors to others? If you've had any experience with mentors yourself, and particularly in real estate?
Yeah, and actually 2 weeks ago, I was down in Florida and I got to meet for about an hour with Grant Cardone, and he's seeing what he does. They took me all through his building. You had half of it was the sales and marketing and internet team. And then the other half was Cardone Capital, which was all about, real estate and talking. And I went through and talked to people that had been there for 2 months and people that had been there for 7 years. And you could tell the experience that they're getting from them. And I told my son, I have 2 boys, 14 and 16, I said, I would love for them to, work for a year. I mean, what a great mentor that they can learn. And just everybody there was just so positive. And what you're going to learn from people like that, or if you have people in your area versus what you're going to learn in school, I mean, it's priceless. And you just figure out what you want to do. And then you find people that are successful in that space and just go to them, with your hat in your hand, and go to them humbled and say, look, I want to learn. You don't have to pay me anything. I'll work for free, but just the payment that you would get would be that knowledge that you're going to take with you the rest of your life.
Incredible.
Great advice.
No, that's really cool. Now, we know financial advisors suggest the 60-40, 60% stocks and 40% bonds. But of course, we're in real estate. So we see the perfect portfolio is 40% real estate private equity and the rest diversified, well, between stocks, bonds, and other alternative investments. But if you could tell us what you think is the perfect portfolio, what does it look like for a doctor investor?
Again, I think it's called personal finance for a reason. It's personal. So it just depends on the person. For me, when I first started investing in real estate, I was 99.9% in the stock market in index funds. And now each year that gets less and less. So I'm shooting for, maybe 50-50 or 60-40 real estate, but still have some in the market. And the way that I look at the investments that I have in the market, whether they're in retirement accounts or in outside of retirement accounts, they're all in mutual funds. But I kind of look at that as I'm not going to touch it. And then the real estate is what I'm going to be living on, especially since I'm going to be retiring before I'm able to touch that. So that's just, on the side. Honestly, it'll probably just be passed on to my heirs. I probably won't have to use it that much as this real estate continues to grow and snowball. And I tell people that, to stick with it, because, once you get around, if you do this every year consistently and invest, when you hit around year 5 or 6, as that's when you start to see things snowball, because, what you had at year 1, if you invest 100,000 a year, can you see this behind me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Clearly.
we can.
So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, well, let's say you're putting 100 grand in each year, but and if a deal, if it goes full cycle every 5 years, well, when you get down here to year 5, well, you're still going to put your 100 in, but if this one is double, well, now this one, you have 200K. So now you actually have 300,000 to go into an investment. And then year 2, same thing. So that, I'm about 6.5 right here. So I'm really starting to see things pick up. And then plus you're going to be busier, you're going to make more money. So this 100 may be 150 you can put in. So it'll, you'll have more money to put into it. And this is once you hit, year 5, 6, 7, that's when have to really start to see things expand. And it doesn't take people, 30 or 35 years of traditional investing when you start doing it this way.
Nice.
But that's what I've found.
Yes.
Powerful.
And then when you have a proper vetting process for sponsors, you can even mitigate the risk more and invest in the right regions as well that are showing consistent job growth and population growth and all that good stuff.
Yeah, exciting, powerful stuff. That's great. Now, before moving on to our next segment of our show, we just wanted to, if you can, Dr. Anzalone, if you could tell us what advice would you give to doctors and other busy professionals that are looking to start passively investing in real estate?
I would say, start off with educating yourself enough, not to be a professional, but to not get into trouble. I tell people, regarding taxes, well, you should know the tax law and you should know about taxes, but not enough to be an accountant. But you want to know enough to ask the right questions when you're searching. I mean, all the information is free online, whether it's YouTube blogs or podcasts. So probably I'm sure you've read this book, the gold standard is The Hands-Off Investor by Brian Burke. That's specifically for people wanting to invest passively, goes over everything regarding syndication. So if you read that book, you'll be 80% ahead of the game.
Nice.
Wonderful. You got the name for that book?
I wrote it down. Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to go to the 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. So I'm just going to go ahead and whatever comes top of mind, Jeff. All right. Who is the most influential person in your life?
My father.
Nice. Now, what is the number one book you'd recommend? I know you already said 3 of them, but what's the number one book you'd recommend?
To get into, 2 of them. One, if you want to learn specifically about real estate passively, was the one I just mentioned from Brian Burke, The Hands-Off Investor. And I think the one that really gets us more in the mindset and realize, that we're trading time for money would be Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant.
Nice. Okay. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would have started investing in real estate much earlier, and I would have sought out mentors much earlier in my career, like when in my 20s, to help me along instead of waiting, so long like I have.
All right. What's the best investment you've ever made?
My wife.
Oh, that's so sweet. Awesome. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made?
Can I say my wife again? No, I'm just kidding. The worst investment I've ever made was actually a crowdfunding. The first equity deal was on realtyshares.com. It was, and I wrote a whole article about it, but every investor in that syndication lost all of their investment. So, and the minimum was $50,000.
Wow. Scary.
That was the worst.
Okay. How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
Now, the financial advisors told me 9 or 10 million, but I've figured up I don't need that. I would need about 3 million.
All right.
Roughly.
All right. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Jesus.
Nice. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
Well, I used to have a pretty successful lawn service, and I liked working outside, so maybe doing that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I can't wait for this one. Book smarts or street smarts?
Oh, street smart.
Street smart.
Yeah, I'm not that smart of a guy.
Last question, Jeff. If you had $1 million cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
It would be a self-storage facility that I actually looked at last week in my area.
Nice.
And that was about what the price on it was.
Oh, fantastic. All right, that's a wrap.
That's
there
the
we
wrap.
go.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. If you could just let everybody know what the best way they can reach you, that would be great.
It would be, they could go to my website and debtfreedr.com, and I put together a passive income guide that if you want me to, I can email you the link, but it's debtfreedr.com /free guide.
Perfect. I actually have that link, so we'll share that.
Okay.
We'll have that in the show notes.
Of course.
We really appreciate you taking the time, Dr. Anzalone. We know how busy you are, and you know, we are sure that this interview will bring great, you know, lots of positives for our viewers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.